We only have till March to figure it out.
Well, I get the impression that it's backing our laps and not the chambers. They don't have the money, they don't have the ability to run it and take that legal responsibility on. So that's my impression that I'm getting from what I'm hearing out there. So we gotta make sure that we protect ourselves the best we can do it from a financial standpoint, liability standpoint, Mike, and unfortunately it's gonna fall on you to get us some additional information.
Which is fine.
And whatever else we can do, let me know, I'll try to help.
I'll be happy to talk to the city attorney about it.
Right.
I think the simple solution is the city, we find out how to do it, but the city forms a separate liability. They can insure things of that nature to start. There's things we can do to start it, but then, you know, eventually, if it, what we got to make sure we're not doing is, I'm sure, just as many people who are supportive of the Snowboat, if this thing isn't making money, and maybe, you know, hopefully it doesn't, this isn't an issue, but the fact of the matter is you're going to have residents on the other side screaming and yelling that you're subsidizing it when we can't fix streets, and that's, and I hear that all the time.
I'll be one of those that'll be screaming.
Right. And that's my concern is we,
The sad thing is, we're already getting beat up about it, and we haven't put a dime into it.
I tried
So the
to
day
cover
that we actually spend $5,000 to repair the boiler valve,
well,
That, but, again, you know, from the very get-go, gentlemen, we said there has to be $100,000 fund. I mean, that Showboat committee, from the very get-go, that was ingrained into my mind, and I mean, I don't know where the disconnect is, but.
well, part of it was, I'm assuming Rich LeBombard was part of those meetings or no?
Yes.
Okay, so,
and Rick, you know,
I mean,
and quite honestly, when I came here, I told Rich, if this project gets, you got to do it. I have too many other things that I had to deal, and at the time there were a lot of things going on, and there always are, but.
that's where the biggest
Right.
disconnect happened, is when Rich got the new job, he didn't bring anybody up to speed, and that's why we're all going, oh, the Showboat committee's got it all handled, when in reality, it didn't. And at least that's my take on it.
The Showboat committee is, there's only two of us here. It's not really the chamber board, that's a whole different thing. And the chamber board said we'd look at pursuing the management of the Showboat. They didn't say they would do it, they said they would
Right.
pursue it. The committee, right tonight, is Mark and I guess. And
I'm not
along
sure
with
what we can
many,
do.
with the city, with Mike, and then all the hired experts.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think we didn't do that we were supposed to do.
Never said that.
No, I don't think-
All I'm talking about is
I
the
heard that.
disconnect. When Rich left, I'm assuming that Rich had a whole lot more information than I did because he went to all the meetings. And when he left, I don't think,
I think Cliff's just saying not that we expect something from you. but
No.
Rich was a communication link that we never realized. Is that what you're saying?
yeah,
Right. And when we brought, you know, and unfortunately, when we brought Dan in the picture, there were a lot of things that had to be done in DPW that we just couldn't have Dan do.
sure.
So,
And it doesn't really matter because we're at this position where we're at, and it isn't gonna change
That is true.
and
by
it's not.
bitching about what
And
happened.
one of the things that I'll just, because I've talked to Mike about it, I've talked to Liz about this, I'll just share with everyone. Go back to when I started in MPA school 19 years ago. One of the things that they always say in government is you have all these different looming issues that are in a cloud. There may be a solution to it, there may not. And a lot of times they don't get addressed until the right time, that when that balloon pops up, you got to address it. And that's what I look at this, and it's probably one of the three things I spent all the money I spent on my MPA that I actually use. And that's probably one of the three.
So to set up a separate LLC under, we can even do that. I'm assuming then that's on our dollar to get that all up and running.
Yeah.
Us paying the attorney fees and.
Which isn't a lot of money. But it would be it'd still be a cost. I think your two costs right now are going to be, well, you're going to have three costs. You're going to have obviously to set up, the legal cost to set it up. You're going to have obviously the liability, the insurance cost, which you probably have up front. The other thing is you're probably going to have to, you're probably going to turn the utilities on at some point. And honestly, I wouldn't turn that on. I honestly wouldn't turn utilities on until you start making money.
Well, what was the second one? The
Insurance.
Liability,
The
that's
insurance.
an upfront. You're
Correct.
gonna add that into the rate,
You can,
right?
but
You know what I mean?
But you're going to have to pay it up front.
Sure, yeah. But it's an investment, it's not out the window money.
No. But it is going to be tax dollars.
Oh,
But we're still looking at anywhere between $6,000 and $15,000 to get the LLC all up. By the time the attorneys are paid, the liability insurance and everything else. Let me ask you this. In our current state of budget, where are you going to find such dollars?
You almost said we, and then you quick said you.
I did that.
Well, the issue we got right now is, obviously revenues are coming in, state revenue sharing, and the light power pilot are coming in a little bit better than what we had. And we also got that significant reimbursement from the state for the police payroll for the $130,000. So there's a cushion. The only problem right now is because of the issue in the police department, we're paying for an additional full-time position right now until the matter is resolved, and we don't know when that's going to be. So-
Maybe our attorneys would want to look at that as a donation to the Showboat fundraiser and charge us.
Well,
You
I
know,
know,
we laugh about it, but.
I'm not allowed to ask that.
Listen,
I'm bound by a code of ethics, I can't do that stuff, but if you want to, that's up to you.
In-kind donation.
Benefit.
there's a way, like, it's doable, right? It's completely doable. And it's not, if it doesn't make money when things are back to whatever version of normal we're gonna be living in. I read on the internet that we're all getting vaccines and microchips the Wednesday after the election, so we should be fine. But if it's not, then you don't do it. I mean, it's an expensive, super cool photo backdrop, right? It still brings people here. There was, almost every day those cranes were running, there was a group of people in the library grass watching, and it's important, but it also has to be a responsibility, it's not a right. So I don't know where that balance lies, but it lies with us and with the chamber and the management company and whoever. But we don't need what, you can say that LLC, the nonprofit's a great idea, but if we can't do it, then it's all moot. So I think we need to find out if we can even do it before we.
Well, I can report to the city attorney, we're going to report back to the next council meeting on that.
Well, Jessica's gonna be here, isn't she, next Monday?
She can be, yep.
Have you thought about what, if the chamber were to actually step out of the box and do something like this? I mean, what would you give to the chamber to do it? I mean,
Well, I
guess
don't
we
want
have
you to
to
think
look
I'm
at
asking you to do all the work, and then we just keep the money. That's not my intention. There's a breakdown somewhere of how everybody is compensated for their work and time, but.
That Deming Chamber Board, I think what we're looking for is just clarification on where those lines are drawn. Where are the separate entities? Because the way the budget was written up, it was very intermingled. So is the chamber, if we were to take this on, would we be an employee of the city essentially? Or would we rent the boat from the city, or the city give it to the chamber? That's what we're looking for clarification on. and why we don't have a business plan all drawn up yet, because we don't know who the players are.
Couldn't we rent them the boat for $1 a year or something?
Sounds like a good price.
I mean,
I don't think I'll speak for myself. I'm not looking for the city to make any money off the Showboat. I don't know.
at first I was, but once I started researching this and researching this and researching this, I don't think it's where we're gonna make our money. And quite honestly, at this point, I don't think we should.
Right.
I think my biggest concern is I don't want 10 years from now, major repairs, and people coming back to the city and say, hey, we need this, we need that. And we don't have it.
Well, my point in saying that is that if the chamber decided this is something they wanted to take on, any profits, Mark was pretty confident that it would be a moneymaker. We're not expecting you to give us 50 cents on every dollar. And I don't know, I don't think we need to make a dime off of it. I'm just worried about where the 95 grand's gonna come from to pay Wolverine when they're done in March. But if the fundraising's kicking butt, I guess I don't need to worry about it.
I just.
I don't think that's an issue at all.
Cool.
To come up with money.
The 95,000 is.
I think we'll hit,
All right.
I'm on that committee, and I think we'll hit the 160 to get the bathrooms going too, and the rate we're going, hopefully there's another couple $100,000 to do some more, keep moving with it.
I just think it's a lot like the chamber building that they're in. We lease that to them every 10 years for $1, right?
Wrong.
$200 a month?
$200, whatever.
200 a
it is.
year?
Now they're paying utilities.
3,000.
Why is it always so dim in there every time I go in there?
I tried to save money.
I would assume that that
Don't try
boat
to
would
eat it.
become, would fall under that same scope and realm where
I don't want you to think we want it to bankrupt the chamber. That's not the intent here.
Well, we
It
can't. I
bankrupt-
mean,
No, I know.
That's the thing, we
Yeah.
can't, we just can't do that. So, you know, there was a lot of confusion. I mean, we can't take on the maintenance of the boat, we can't. It's just not, we can't do that. You know, I mean, all along, I figured the DPW would be part of that whole maintenance, part. I mean, we talked about a long time ago that this would become part of the park system. I mean, that was brought up several times. Showboat would become part of the park system. Even when you've owned the boat all these years, the chamber probably has been the one that's cared for it the most and given it the most love. I have volunteers that come out of the woodwork to stack tables and put chairs away and clean up the boat and do all those things. It's not something that, that the city really did. We tried to keep as little work as possible for the city to do, but this is a new venue, and we can't just do what we did before.
Yeah, but it can't bankrupt the city. I mean, we only have so much funds that we can do so much with.
I understand that, but so
So-
now what do we do?
Right,
We're
so
at that problem.
I think this LLC, we get the attorney down, we say, okay, this is the direction we'd like to see everything going. And if your board is all happy with the decision and we sit as a group and this gets hashed out and worked out, great. If our attorney comes and says we got a big problem, then I guess we'll have to deal with that at that time. But to me, it just seems like then, at some point, then you guys can go ahead and start putting up, like you said, a business plan together to start looking forward to how to make and do a lot of things happen. We know we can probably, I'm not going to speak for the city, but I'm assuming Mike can find the money to, get the LLC up and running and start it and get the liability insurance paid up, but,
Did the old Showboat, outside of the concert series, did it generate any money?
Very little.
Okay.
Holy cow, I think I gave the city a whopping $300 a year.
Okay,
Yeah.
but like the concerts were their own deal.
Right,
So whatever Gilmore paid to be part of the concerts or whatever, that
all
all
the
went.
sponsors went to the Chamber of Lowell Arts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like Riverwalk and,
I want to think that we're putting quality parts and pieces into this boat from a maintenance standpoint. I really don't look at any maintenance happening for maybe 3 to 5 years down the road, but you never know. Liz has got 10 years. That's just to get it out of the water, do some of that routine maintenance, but there are going to be things that just happen. So I'm thinking, we're talking about maintenance today, but I still think that's down the road, but we still need to prepare for it. We still need to have some funding set aside, so when those rainy days do happen, at least we're covered, right?
Maybe we could work in I mean, I'm with Marty. The first thing to do is to see if we can get it its own little entity, its own little umbrella. And then we can hammer out, if the chamber is interested, we could hammer out some kind of deal where maybe X% of the profits went into a maintenance fund or something.
That maybe ramps up over time.
Right, and I threw out scenarios to you. 68,000 is based on a 50-year depreciation of a $3.4 million asset. I'm not
Right.
saying you have to do that. Maybe $30,000 more on the line. Maybe it's 15 first couple of years, and then down the road you ramp it. I mean, but the fact of the matter is, from a city's end, obviously, when you're projecting this, you're going to be conservative. So,
Right. Well, I'm a lot
and the
more.
city can have an investment fund, Mike, is that correct?
correct.
Okay.
We have what's called designated funds, so we can designate a fund to it. Yes.
No, but I meant you can invest that fund, like, per se, with Edward Jones or somebody like that.
Yeah, we do that now. I mean, basically, we can, I don't know if this qualifies for the county plan program, but I know for Look, we do that. I
Yeah,
believe, but I believe, I believe that Grand Rapids Community Foundation gets a part of it, but we do invest a portion of those funds, yes. Of that endowment. So I know we can. I don't know if we can do it through the county plan, but it can be, yeah, we'll look into that.
Because if we had the right investor, we should be able to have a good fund built up before we ever have to do any maintenance at all.
I'd go talk to Rain Man before he leaves.
Steve, can we put a?
So, you guys are good with looking to see, make sure that an LLC can be set up, correct? And we can do these things we just sat here and talked about? Do you want to come back and try to bring in something different? Do you want to, I don't need to take over for you, but it's questions I get asked. Because we can,
How about if we put the Showboat on continuing agenda item? And if one or more of either the chamber board and or Showboat fundraising people, whatever, can, even if you don't really have any breakthrough news, if you just let us know where the balances are and what's happening, that way it won't, we kind of put out fires when we see the smoke. But if you're there constantly to talk about it, then I'm looking at March as a positive thing, because
Well, I
that
don't
gives
think
us
there's-
5 months to get.
Well, I think Liz is right. I think if you start now, or in March, or whenever, and you take a percentage of what's coming in, put it in, invest it, it's 5 years here, 10 years there, so 7.5 years before you're gonna have to do any serious
Right.
maintenance. I think that was very well thought out in the design process and the original bids and the Moran contract and all that stuff was minimal maintenance, maximum longevity, right? I think we all did a good job of that. So. And I'm not concerned about the fundraising. I think that'll be, nostalgia's big right now.
One question.
Everett, everybody know. Is the LLC gonna be the owner of the boat?
That would be,
I think that's what we would intend for.
So if the chamber doesn't book any events and something breaks, the LLC is gonna pay for the stuff that breaks on the boat?
I think the funds would have to go to the LLC, yeah, if we do it that way.
Good question.
So you had asked for the chamber to get back to you. We actually planned a meeting tomorrow morning as a follow-up for this, so we'll have some internal discussions. and-
Yeah, because my whole thinking is just get Mike started down the path tonight, right? Start asking these questions tonight instead of next Monday night.
Yeah.
Just trying to expedite this as fast as possible to make everybody in the room happy.
We still just want to know what the role would be before we decide that we can do this. Is it just handling the marketing and the booking of the boat, or is it everything?
What do you
We're just
want
looking
it
for
to
more
be?
clarification on that role.
What do you want it to be?
That's what we need to discuss that too.
I mean, at this point, I think if you guys wanna run it, have at it.
You could probably have as much as you want.
And that's,
Seriously. And
I think we gotta have some internal discussions there.
Right.
yeah.
Well, and thanks, John, for tossing that thought out about getting the kids, students, business students involved. I think that's a pretty cool thing, and it could be an ongoing,
Well, it's gonna have to be a community thing. And the problem with the chamber is you got the liability and you have the unknowns of how much money it's gonna make. That's just the truth of the matter. It's gonna take a year or two, especially in this economy. We don't know what's gonna happen in 6 months from now. You got election, you got lots of things going on. So you got that side of it. And then you get the city's point of view, which I completely understand. You don't want the liability. But there's gotta be some sort of compromise, some sort of sweet middle ground that we can accomplish. And even if it's short term, like 2 or 3, 5 years, a plan that you put in place to transfer it over to the chamber or whatever it may be. But ultimately, it's gonna be a community project to where you're gonna have to make it work, because it's here, it's not going away. So therefore, you have to maximize the opportunity of it, and you have to make it work. Who cares what happened in the past, it doesn't matter, it's here. But ultimately, you gotta figure out the liability of it, and you gotta figure out, who can withstand that little bit of potential pain short term.
yeah, I think if you find a way to share the pain, you get to share the success too, right? It's not-
Exactly.
I want the chamber to do all the work in the city to take all the credit, and I want the city to do all the work in the chamber to take all the credit. It's not anybody's intention, I don't think.
Well, I was just hoping that we get some kind of direction, that the chamber knows what to go back and talk to their people tomorrow, wherever that meeting is. And then we got some clear defined things that Mike has to follow up, which is positive. And then I think we get back, circle back after your meeting. I guess you guys just go to Mike with that, and Mike can let us know at the next council meeting what that was, and we'll go from there. That's it.
One more question. If the city takes over the boat, do we also get the building with the bathrooms? Or is that city property still, city takes care of the bathrooms, maintains the bathrooms?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I think all that would come out of whatever maintenance investment you make. I think it would all be one, because you can't have one without the other.
Oh, I'm just
but
asking.
the public, we've needed public bathrooms.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna
Decade
be
and a
used for
half.
the concert series, it's gonna be for all the venues, where Riverwalk, it's more than just a showboat. It's
Isn't
going to
that
benefit
like-
from those
Yeah,
bathrooms.
I was gonna say, wasn't the intention of the bathrooms always, like you said, Cliff,
We should.
Lowell's never had public restrooms.
Well, I thought that I thought that's where the park discussion first came up, wasn't it? Was using the bathrooms, because the Riverwalk is a park. Right
Yeah,
now, you're talking about more city property over here now you're talking about events. And
and
once
the
you,
trailhead and all that
yeah,
other
building
stuff.
them is where it's expensive, right? Replacing the paper towel and mopping the floor isn't a huge outlay of money, but you would hope in non-public restroom times that cleaning and maintenance would go along with the event. But the rest of the time, there's no reason they couldn't be operated just like the Creekside bathrooms or the Pebble Beach bathrooms, open for events, open till dusk.
Whatever time.
It's a stop in a truck that's already rolling around cleaning up and locking doors. I don't,
Well, now they're auto locked.
well, there you
Yeah.
go. But there's no public bathrooms on this side of Hudson anyway.
So then it would be fair to say that when we have our discussion tomorrow, we would be concentrating on the Showboat, and just know that bathrooms is, à la carte is part of it. It's part of what would come along with the Showboat and the public as well.
Yeah, it's with it for the events, it's public when there's not events. It's a need. It's a need, and that may even be something that.
If they raise the money for the bathrooms, can we commit to keeping them?
I don't think that's an unreasonable request.
I don't either. And it might even be something you go to parks with too, right? Because they're,
How's that sound?
Well, I mean, we are raising money.
I know.
I mean, that's part of.
Well, that's why I said, hey, if you guys are kicking butt raising money and you get that money,
there's no reason we shouldn't do everything we can to predict the investment they're making.
right.
Because
And we
they're
need,
making an investment in a fundraising effort for everybody in the community to use, whether they're renting the Showboat or not, right? I don't think that's an unreasonable request, and I don't even think it's a bad idea to, I know the parks just scheduled their first meeting in a while. I'll have to check the date, but it's not unreasonable to go to them and say, hey, as part of your maintenance and your master plan and your thing, can you add the bathrooms? It's a benefit.
The parks meet on Thursday night.
There you go, it's Thursday night. I looked up the date. But that's not it. I mean, they need to know too. And maybe they're not willing to do it, and we go back and say, screw it, we'll pay for the paper towel ourselves. Maybe they are willing to do it because it's
Everything will be
gonna,
electric hand dryer, so you don't have to worry about.
no,
having anyone-
absolutely not.
Well, I mean, I did always think that the bathrooms were something that would be open all the time and not just during a Showboat event. mean,
I don't think the LLC needs to have anything to do with the bathrooms. The bathrooms are public bathrooms that we'll use for concerts and et cetera, et cetera.
I don't think it's very difficult for the city just to address that.
Right.
It is a need. It's not like we're doing it as a favor to somebody.
Right.
It's a need on this side of town, and it has been.
Then those three guys that pee in the bushes all summer long can do something else.
Okay, I'm just gonna throw a little bit more fire in there.
Great.
You know, the whole vision, Mike had said, was $750,000, the whole building, right? Part of that was like the bridal suite and another meeting room, correct? And then there was two places there that you could build out for office space or whatever. Would that become part of the LLC, or would that still remain in the city?
So if you're gonna have meeting spaces or incubator type spaces, then the DDA could probably get involved with that.
Okay, but
Is that the drawing you made with Liz's penthouse on the top?
Yeah.
Here? Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, just,
I
we
mean,
need to throw that in there, we're not, I don't, Mark and Teresa are very optimistic, we're gonna raise all that money.
Yeah.
Well,
But,
Well, I think
the
we.
point was, if we raise more than we need,
yeah,
then we would expand our scope and pick up the bridal suite
yes,
and make that one nice.
it goes along with the bathrooms.
But I think we got two issues. We got the Showboat thing, and then we have the property on this side, which I think is a total different entity. We try to keep that separate from the Showboat list, from that
Yeah.
side.
But if you have event spaces and meeting spaces and that is a whole separate opportunity. Because you can have somebody in, you know, the DDA could have a part in it. You're gonna rent just the meeting space on Tuesday afternoon. You know, like right now, the Suez guys use the fire station for their meetings, and that's not available, then what do? They'll come down here, right? So it's a separate benefit outside of Saturday afternoon weddings on the show. I don't think.
Maybe that would be a separate thing from the Showboat even, rather than putting them all together. The bathrooms will be the city's problem to deal with going forward, but well, I mean, if you do a bridal suite, that's part of the Showboat, right? I mean,
Liz, in your current lease, does it include that whole building?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, just that area you guys are, okay.
It's
The
not
city owns
on-
the other half.
The rest of it's technically DPW, right? A
Correct.
DPW facility.
What'd you say, Teresa?
It's not on the Showboat.
The bridal suite.
The
No,
bridal-
no,
but
no, it's in the,
Yeah, it's
The
on
only
this-
people that would rent it would be somebody having a wedding, right? Or am I missing something?
Probably included in their price, I would think.
Yeah, and that's something that the city and the LLC can work out.
Right. Well, my point was that
you guys,
if
you guys
we're
want-
gonna do
or
something,
you have
that
any more
the
questions?
LLC might
Wanna ask them?
include that with the boat.
Well, I think what you do, maybe what you do is you have agreements with the LLC for,
Visual,
you know, make it,
audio.
where the, basically where the DPW building is, make it city-owned. And then, you know, if those other areas, because they're gonna fundraise it, you make some sort of an agreement with the LLC that, okay, you're gonna be allowed, you know, you use this, and this is, you don't, work it out that way.
You rent it, you
Yeah,
get.
they can operate it, do what they want with it, you know, we'll just keep it under the cities.
I think that we're good if you guys, we'll have a meeting tomorrow morning and, you know, come back to you with something and go from there. But, I mean, I do want to just say, we want to work with the city no matter what, to make sure that it does become the venue that it was intended to become. Whether the chamber runs it, or you run it, or an LLC runs it, whatever, we're willing, I believe, we're willing to work to make sure that we work together as a team to get this done.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep. I think I don't speak for everybody, I feel the same way, I don't know how the rest of us feel, but it's, I think a lot of a little got done tonight,
I feel a whole lot better than I did at 5:59.
And I do want to see this thing succeed. I want this thing to be the showpiece that gets talked about all over this country, you know. What a cool thing it is. Believe me, made sure that monies I could raise through helping what I do, you know, I've been a very good supporter of it. I just want to make sure that, you know, I've been elected by the city of people. I have to make sure I'm looking out for their dollar amount too, so.
And we all agree with that. We want you to do that. That's, but we,
It's
like I said.
dangerous when nostalgia and emotion get involved. Because outside of Mike, we're elected by the people who live here, and we're people who live here, and there's a lot of emotional attachment to the Showboat and the Riverwalk and the Chamber and Liz and Mark and Teresa and Patrick and Everett and whoever else. Separating that is difficult. Because I'm responsible to every person in this city, but I have a deep-seated belief that it will be successful, and I wouldn't expect you to do all the work and then get cut out or receive none of the credit, if that makes sense. Like, oh, you guys did fundraising and all this other stuff, but now we're gonna take full credit for it, you know. But I wouldn't expect it to go the other way either.
I think we need to build on nostalgia for the next 50 years. A lot of people here have had fond memories of 50, 60 years of the previous 6 showboats or 5 showboats. And now it's time for that next generation to kick in and get those same kind of fond memories that a lot of us have had in this community over the last 50. And I think when the rest of the community buys in on it and supports it, it will be successful. And we'll all be proud of it, see it in our community.
And you're getting to that point now. You're getting to the point where the kids who saw Santa on the Showboat are now the kids that want to get married on the Showboat. And if you don't jump on that chance, you don't get it again. If we don't keep the paddle wheel rolling, right, there isn't going to be, in 25 years, a bunch of kids who I don't know, were conceived in the bathrooms of the DPW building. It's not, I don't want to be on a council or involved with a chamber that's responsible for putting the brakes on that, taking the Showboat out of the Showboat City. I don't want that on my hands. We've done so much positive up here, I think, in the last, 4 years I've been here, 4 and some change. We have the biodigester, we've dealt with the other stuff that's come up. This is time for something positive to come out of the last 4 years. And if we screw that up, we don't deserve to be sitting up here. So I have a responsibility to everybody to make sure this is done properly. If it fails because we did everything right, what are you going to do, man? What are you going to do? 16-0 and losing the Super Bowl, it's still a good season. If you go 0-16 because you didn't try, that's a whole, I don't want any part of that. I don't. Marty?
What's that?
Council comments, hold it up.
Okay, so many of you got Facebook, I personally do not, but I'm sure you all have seen that picture that Bruce took of the boat sitting there in the river. You come into the store, in our store, and we are selling prints of that. We're going to cover our costs of the print, and all proceeds are going to go back to rebuild the Showboat Fund. We're going to do a limited run of 100 as it stands right now. They're on canvas. It's an amazing piece. It's in my front window of my store. I suggest everybody walk by and take a look at it. And I'd like to think everybody would order one, so we can get 100 ordered by next weekend. But that's it.
Cliff?
Thanks, everybody, for showing up, and I appreciate the feedback and hearing from you.
Jim?
Liz, is that the same print you showed us?
Yes.
Okay. Then I'm good.
I did, this is complete, it's unrelated, but it's related. I was at New Union today meeting with Tyler about something, and he has a replica of the last Showboat that his dad built, fully encased. I told him to reach out to the Historical Museum, Lisa, and see if they wanted to do something with it, and if that didn't work, I told them to reach out to you. So if you hear from them, that's why. Jim?
I'll make a motion to adjourn at 7:27.
Second that? Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
what? All right, motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.